Imagine waking up one day to find that every decision you've ever made, the jobs you've taken, the people you've loved, the dreams you've pursued or abandoned, was never truly yours. Not entirely. Imagine realizing that the way you speak, the way you hold yourself, even the emotions that rise uninvited in your chest, are echoes of a script you never consciously agreed to. A script written long before you knew how to write your own name. You might say that can't be true. I make my own choices. But pause for a moment. Why do you prefer one style of music over another? Why do certain people irritate you instantly, while others feel strangely familiar even upon first meeting? Why do you chase certain goals so desperately, while quietly sabotaging yourself every time you get close? If you trace each of these patterns far enough, you'll find they lead back, not to the present, but to something buried, something ancient within you. An unconscious mind that operates like the silent puppeteer of your life, pulling strings you didn't even know were attached. The unsettling part? This unconscious mind is not evil. It's not trying to destroy you. But it is trying to keep you safe, according to rules it learned decades ago, rules that may now be completely out of date. It learned from your childhood, from your parents' voices, from the culture around you, from every success and every humiliation you ever experienced. It absorbed the way your father slammed the door when he was angry, the way your mother looked away when she was disappointed, the way your teachers measured your worth in grades and gold stars. It memorized your small victories, your quiet heartbreaks, your most humiliating defeats, and then, without asking your permission, it built an invisible fortress around your identity. And inside that fortress, it locked you in, for your own protection. Here's the paradox. Your unconscious mind is both your protector and your jailer. It shields you from pain, but in doing so, it also shields you from growth. You may believe you are chasing your dreams, but if those dreams threaten to shake the foundation of what your unconscious mind believes is safe, it will pull you back, subtly, quietly, efficiently. It might whisper excuses into your thoughts. You're not ready yet. What if you fail? What will people think? Or it might tempt you with distractions. Just check your phone. Take a break. You can start tomorrow. It never raises its voice. It doesn't need to. It knows the architecture of your mind better than you do. But here is the question that should keep you awake tonight. If so much of who you are, your habits, your fears, your desires, is shaped by this hidden force, then how much of your life has actually been yours? Have you truly loved who you've loved? Or did your unconscious mind recognize in them a pattern it was already comfortable with? Have you pursued your passions? Or did you pursue what would gain you the most approval from others? Are you the person you chose to be, or the person you were trained to be? And if you've been trained, then trained by whom? By the parents who were themselves shaped by their own unconscious minds? By a society that profits from your fears? By a history you never personally lived, yet still carry inside you like a second shadow? Here is the cruel irony: the unconscious mind can be brilliant. It can save your life without you realizing it. It can help you read danger in someone's voice before a single threat is spoken. It can make you reach for the brake pedal before your eyes have even processed the car in front of you. But when the danger it's protecting you from exists only in memory, when the threat is not a predator, but your own potential, it becomes the greatest obstacle you will ever face. And the hardest part? You cannot fight it directly. You cannot simply declare, "I'm free now," and expect the chains to vanish. Because these chains are invisible. They live inside the language you use, the memories you cling to, the emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. The unconscious mind is not just beneath your awareness. It is your awareness shaped by years you can't remember clearly. So here's the great question that demands an answer. If the life you're living has been quietly authored by an unseen part of you, then how do you reclaim the pen? How do you wake up from a dream when the dream feels like reality itself? And perhaps more disturbingly, are you even sure you want to wake up? The great tragedy of the unconscious mind is not that it exists, but that we rarely acknowledge it. We grow up believing the self is a single, unified thing. I think, I feel, I decide. But the deeper truth, whispered by centuries of philosophers and shouted by modern psychology, is far less comforting. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the repressed, unseen half of your psyche that contains not only your darkest impulses but also your unlived potential. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of the prison of habit, where humans become comfortable slaves to their own repeated patterns. Viktor Frankl, a man who endured the horrors of concentration camps, revealed that much of human suffering comes not from the pain itself, but from the meaning, or lack of meaning, we assign to it. All of them pointed to the same conclusion: the conscious self is not the master you imagine it to be. The truth is, most of your conscious decisions are nothing more than justifications, stories your brain creates after your unconscious has already decided. Neuroscientists like Benjamin Libet have shown in experiments that your brain signals an intention to act milliseconds before you are consciously aware of deciding to act. This means that the you think is in control is more of a commentator than a commander. But why is this hidden machinery so powerful? Because it was built in the crucible of survival. From the moment you were born, your nervous system began mapping reality. It scanned for patterns. What brings comfort? What causes pain? What gets me love? What gets me rejection? The answers to these questions became the foundation of your unconscious programming. If as a child you reached for something and were punished, your unconscious may have stored the message: it's dangerous to take initiative. If you spoke your mind and were met with ridicule, the lesson might have been: silence is safer. These lessons didn't arrive as words. They arrived as feelings, gut sensations, tension in your chest, a quickening of your heart. You didn't think your way into these patterns, you felt your way into them. And because feelings bypass logic, these early imprints became nearly impossible to question later in life. Society compounds this problem. From birth, you are not only shaped by your family but also by a cultural system designed to mold you into something predictable and compliant. Schools rarely teach you to question your programming, they reinforce it. Workplaces reward conformity, not self-exploration. The media doesn't aim to expand your consciousness. It seeks to hijack it to keep you consuming, scrolling, needing. This is why most people never confront the unconscious directly. It's not just personal, it's systemic. Your unconscious isn't only yours. It is an heirloom, passed down through generations. Your fears may echo your grandmother's. Your compulsions may mirror your father's. And they too inherited theirs. Think of it like this: you are running on an operating system you didn't design. Worse, you've been taught to believe you are the operating system. Arthur Schopenhauer once remarked that man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. You can choose between tea or coffee, between taking the job or rejecting it, but can you choose why you want one thing over another? Can you choose the desires themselves, or the fears that steer you away? This is the hidden problem. We confuse freedom with options, when true freedom is the ability to choose without invisible strings. You may think, but my unconscious keeps me safe. Yes, safe according to yesterday's map of reality. But the terrain has changed. Many of the fears that ruled you as a child are irrelevant now. The danger is that your unconscious doesn't update easily. It will defend the old fortress even when the war is over. This is why people sabotage themselves when they get close to success. It's not always fear of failure. It's fear of stepping outside the identity the unconscious has spent years protecting. Take the person who grew up in scarcity. They work tirelessly, finally earn enough to live comfortably, and suddenly find ways to lose it all. Not because they are foolish, but because their unconscious mind whispers, "We are not the kind of people who have abundance. That is unsafe. That is unknown." Or the person who longs for deep love but keeps choosing partners who cannot provide it. Why? Because somewhere in their early wiring, love was paired with instability. To the unconscious, that instability feels like home. It is a brutal truth. We will often choose the familiar pain over unfamiliar happiness. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that we are condemned to be free, meaning we are responsible for creating our own meaning. But here's the twist. Most people flee from this responsibility into the comfort of unconscious patterns. Freedom is terrifying because it strips away excuses. If you wake up, you can no longer say, "I can't help it, it's just who I am." And so, without realizing it, you live in a trance. A perfectly normal trance accepted by everyone around you. A trance where your thoughts, your reactions, and even your deepest beliefs are not truly yours but inherited whispers from the past. The unconscious mind doesn't care about truth, it cares about stability. And if stability means keeping you in the same looping patterns for decades, it will do so without hesitation. Here is where the philosophical meets the personal. To live unconsciously is to live as a ghost in your own life. A character reciting lines in a play you didn't audition for. To live consciously is to risk burning that script and stepping into the unknown, naked and trembling, without the comfort of rehearsed lines. And yet, until you do, you will never truly meet yourself. Because beneath all the programming, beneath the survival patterns and societal conditioning, there exists something untouchable, an awareness that is yours alone. The tragedy is that most people never reach it. They die in the fortress, mistaking the walls for the world. You may think that if the unconscious mind is invisible, its effects are subtle, gentle currents beneath the surface of life. But that is the most dangerous illusion of all. The unconscious does not merely influence your life. It designs it. It shapes the career you choose, the relationships you sustain, the goals you dare to imagine, and the ones you never even consider. It filters every opportunity through a hidden network of associations built from your past. And because it operates silently, you believe you're making choices freely, when in reality you are walking down a hallway whose walls were erected decades ago. If as a child you learned that speaking up led to punishment or humiliation, your unconscious might quietly nudge you away from leadership positions in adulthood. You'll rationalize it with 1,000 explanations. "I just prefer to work behind the scenes, I'm not political, I'm an introvert," but the real reason is an invisible scar left years ago. Or perhaps you grew up in an environment where love was unpredictable, where warmth could vanish in an instant. Your unconscious may have decided that emotional closeness is dangerous, and so you now find yourself attracted to partners who keep you at arm's length. Feels frustrating, but familiar. The most insidious consequence? The unconscious can turn your own intelligence into a weapon against you. It will use your reasoning skills to justify staying exactly where you are. It will convince you that your patterns are just who you are, that the fortress walls are actually the edges of the world. Cognitive biases make this prison even harder to see. Take confirmation bias. Your unconscious will steer you toward evidence that supports its old programming and filter out anything that contradicts it. If you believe deep down that people can't be trusted, you'll notice every betrayal and overlook every act of loyalty. Or status quo bias. Your unconscious equates change with danger even if the change is clearly beneficial. This is why people cling to jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, or habits that slowly erode their health. Because the mind's unspoken mantra is better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Then there's negativity bias. Your unconscious gives more weight to threats than opportunities. That's why the sting of one insult can eclipse 100 compliments, and why you'll talk yourself out of risks that could transform your life. On a societal scale, these hidden programs replicate themselves like a virus. A culture shaped by fear will unconsciously raise children who fear risk. A society obsessed with status will unconsciously breed individuals who measure their worth by comparison. And generation after generation, the same invisible blueprints are passed down, sometimes not through words but through gestures, silences, and emotional atmospheres. Look at the patterns in your own family. Is there a recurring financial struggle, an emotional wound, a type of relationship dynamic that appears over and over? These are not coincidences. They are inherited codes, etched into the unconscious and carried forward. This is why collective change is so slow. Laws can shift overnight, technology can leap forward in a decade. But the unconscious mind resists change like a deep root gripping the soil. Now imagine the personal toll of living a life ruled by these hidden forces. The jobs you didn't apply for. The cities you never moved to. The love you turned away from without even realizing why. Think of the creativity stifled because someone somewhere in your past told you your ideas weren't practical. Think of the friendships never formed because your unconscious whispered they wouldn't understand you. Think of the risks never taken because your body remembered an old fear more vividly than your mind remembered the dream. This is not just about missed opportunities, it's about identity theft on a soul-deep level. The you've been living as maybe nothing more than the safest, most socially acceptable version your unconscious could construct. And here's the cruelest consequence. You begin to confuse comfort with happiness. Comfort feels like safety, but it is often the slow anesthetic that dulls your awareness until years have passed and you can't remember the last time you truly felt alive. Your unconscious prefers comfort because comfort means predictability, and predictability means survival. But survival is not the same as living. You might look successful from the outside. You might have the house, the job, the relationship, the carefully curated image. But beneath it all, there's a quiet, nagging sense that something essential is missing, something you can't quite name. That unnamed absence is the life you could have lived if the unconscious had not been steering you away from it. The emotional cost of this unseen control is profound. It breeds anxiety, because deep down, part of you senses you're not fully in the driver's seat. It breeds depression, because your deepest desires remain unexpressed, locked behind invisible doors. It breeds resentment, because you blame circumstances, other people, or even yourself without realizing the real culprit has been within you all along. And here lies the final trap. The unconscious is not malicious, so you cannot hate it into submission. It is like an overprotective parent, misguided, stubborn, and convinced it knows best. If you try to fight it directly, it will only fortify its walls. This is why so many people stay stuck. They sense the chains but can't see them, so they keep pulling in the wrong direction, exhausting themselves without ever breaking free. The truth is, until you make the unconscious conscious, as Jung famously warned, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You will mistake your patterns for destiny. You will mistake your programming for personality. And worst of all, you will mistake survival for living. If you want to reclaim your life, you cannot simply wish for change. You must wake up, not in a single epiphany, but in 1,000 moments of clarity, each one revealing another hidden thread that has been pulling you. But here's the problem. Waking up is dangerous. It will destabilize the identity you've built. It will force you to face fears you've spent decades avoiding. It will demand that you step outside the fortress with no guarantee of safety. And that is exactly why it's worth it. Rebellion begins not with action, but with awareness. You cannot fight an enemy you refuse to see, and the unconscious mind is the most skilled illusionist you will ever meet. It will let you rearrange your habits, shift your routines, even change your external circumstances, so long as the core programming remains untouched. If you want to break free, you must aim deeper. The first radical shift is this. You do not have an unconscious mind. You are an unconscious mind, at least until you awaken. This is why change feels so difficult. You're not just replacing behaviors, you're challenging the very architecture of who you think you are. Most people begin the wrong way. They try to change the outer layers first. They swap one job for another, one partner for another, one city for another. But unless the inner wiring shifts, the new life becomes just another version of the old one. Same patterns. Different scenery. So where do you begin? Carl Jung's shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about seeing yourself clearly without filters. This means asking brutal questions. What do I avoid thinking about? What traits in others trigger me the most? And do I secretly possess them? Where in my life am I pretending? The unconscious hides in the places you least want to look. Your irritation with others often reflects what you've disowned in yourself. Your deepest insecurities often point directly to the boundaries of your programming. This confrontation is uncomfortable because it strips away illusions. You begin to realize that much of your identity was built as armor, not truth. But until you see the armor, you cannot remove it. The unconscious thrives in repetition. To weaken its hold, you must break patterns deliberately. Take different routes home. Eat with your non-dominant hand. Speak up in situations where you'd usually stay silent. Seek out experiences that make you feel awkward or out of place. These small acts send a signal. We are not running on autopilot anymore. Even more powerful is metacognition, thinking about your thinking. Throughout the day, pause and ask, what emotion am I feeling right now? What triggered it? Is this reaction coming from the present moment or from my past? At first, you'll notice how much of your life runs on old scripts. Over time, these interruptions create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, freedom begins. Your unconscious mind is essentially a vast library of associations. This equals safety. That equals danger. This brings pleasure. That brings pain. If you want a new life, you must rewire these associations. Fear is the biggest gatekeeper here. It will tell you that certain actions, starting a business, pursuing a passion, leaving a relationship, are dangerous. Often, the danger is not physical but emotional. Fear of rejection, failure, or shame. The rebellion is to prove your unconscious wrong through experience. Start small. If public speaking terrifies you, speak up in a small meeting. If rejection scares you, deliberately put yourself in situations where it's possible, and survive it. Each time you face a fear without catastrophe, the unconscious updates its map. The danger signal weakens and your range of possible actions expands. Your unconscious mind speaks in stories, the stories you've told yourself since childhood. I'm not good with money. I'm bad at relationships. I can't change who I am. These are not truths, they are scripts. And scripts can be rewritten. Write down the core beliefs you hold about yourself, even the ugly ones. Then, challenge each one with evidence to the contrary. If you believe I always fail, list times you've succeeded. If you believe I'm not creative, list moments when you solve problems in unexpected ways. This isn't about blind positivity. It's about breaking the monopoly your unconscious has on your self-image. Once the old patterns are exposed, you must replace them, not just in thought but in behavior. If your unconscious identity is the one who stays quiet, your new identity must speak. If your unconscious identity is the one who plays it safe, your new identity must take calculated risks. Action is the final proof your unconscious needs to accept the update. You can affirm and visualize all you want, but until you act, the fortress stands. History is filled with people who broke free from unconscious conditioning. Rosa Parks did not just refuse to give up her seat. She shattered a societal program that said obedience was survival. Viktor Frankl, in the unimaginable darkness of a concentration camp, chose to see himself as more than a prisoner. He reclaimed the one freedom no one could take, the power to choose his own attitude. Even in smaller, personal rebellions, the pattern is the same. Awareness, disruption, rewriting, action. Breaking free is not a gentle process. It will unsettle relationships, especially those built around your old identity. Some people will resist your change because your transformation forces them to confront their own unconscious patterns. You will feel lost at times, as if you've stepped outside the fortress and found yourself in a vast, unfamiliar wilderness. This is normal. Freedom is disorienting when you've lived in confinement. But the discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're finally moving beyond the boundaries of your programming. The rebellion is not about destroying your unconscious. It's about bringing it into alignment with who you choose to be. When you integrate it instead of being ruled by it, you gain access to the vast power it holds. Intuition sharpened by experience, creativity born from your unique history, and the resilience of every challenge you've survived. And then, for the first time, your choices will be yours. Not echoes of someone else's voice, not shadows from the past, but deliberate, conscious creations. This is the doorway to the final truth. A truth that does not just change how you think but changes the very ground you stand on. Imagine that after years of searching, peeling back layer after layer of illusion, you finally reach the core of your mind. You've confronted the shadow, disrupted your patterns, rewritten your associations, and begun to live from conscious choice. And yet, there is still something there. Something deeper than the unconscious programming, deeper than the stories you've told yourself, deeper than the identity you've been defending your whole life. It is not fear. It is not desire. It is not even thought. It is awareness itself. Here is the ultimate truth. You are not your unconscious mind. You are not even your conscious mind. You are the space in which both arise. The unconscious, as powerful as it is only a set of patterns, a storm of neural connections formed by memory and emotion. Your conscious mind, for all its rationalizing and decision-making, is just another tool. But you, the real you, are something neither of them can touch. This is why mystics, philosophers, and spiritual teachers across cultures have all pointed toward the same realization in different words. You are not the thoughts you think. You are not the feelings you feel. You are not the history you carry. You are the witness. When you fully grasp this, something astonishing happens. The unconscious loses its power to define you. Yes, it may still send old thoughts, old fears, old impulses, but now you see them for what they are: echoes. Ghost signals from an outdated system. They can still knock on the door, but you no longer have to let them in. And when you no longer identify with the unconscious, you also no longer fear it. You can walk through its old corridors without getting lost. You can explore your memories without drowning in them. You can even embrace the patterns that once held you prisoner because you know they are not who you are. This is the paradox of ultimate freedom. It doesn't come from conquering the unconscious. It comes from stepping beyond identification with it. Carl Jung hinted at this when he spoke of individuation, the process of integrating all parts of yourself into a whole. But integration does not mean merging into the unconscious. It means holding it in awareness like a painter holding a palette. The colors are there to be used, but they are not the painter. Think of your unconscious mind as a river. For most of your life, you've been swept along by its current, believing the river was the whole world. Awakening doesn't mean stopping the river, it means climbing onto the bank and seeing it for the first time. From there, you can choose whether to step back in, to navigate, to swim, or to simply watch. The shift changes everything. Fear transforms into information. Instead of paralyzing you, fear becomes a signal that a part of your programming is being challenged. You can thank it for the warning without obeying it. Desire becomes guidance, not compulsion. You can want something without being owned by the wanting. Failure loses its sting. If you are not your identity, then failure is not a wound to your being, it's just feedback for your journey. The ultimate truth also dissolves the illusion of control in a liberating way. You realize that while you can influence your thoughts and actions, you do not own them in the way you once believed. Life moves through you, and your role is not to control every wave, but to steer with awareness. This is what the Stoics understood when they spoke of focusing only on what is within your control. It is what Eastern philosophy points to in the practice of non-attachment, not detachment, which is withdrawal, but the freedom to engage fully without clinging. But here's the most powerful part. When you stop identifying with the unconscious, you stop being predictable. The unconscious runs on repetition, but awareness is infinite in possibility. You can respond to situations in ways your past never could have predicted. You can choose kindness where there was once only defensiveness. You can choose courage where there was once only avoidance. This is how you become truly alive, not by erasing your past but by refusing to be confined by it. There is, however, a cost to living from this ultimate truth. The fortress of the unconscious provided a certain comfort, even if it was a prison. Without it, there is no ready-made identity to fall back on. You will be called to create yourself anew, again and again, in every moment. This is both terrifying and exhilarating. It is the burden and the beauty of freedom. You wake up tomorrow morning. You feel the familiar pull of old habits. Maybe the urge to scroll through your phone, the echo of self-doubt before a meeting, the twinge of resentment toward someone you know. But now, instead of slipping into them automatically, you pause. You notice. You see the pattern. And in that pause you realize, I do not have to play this role today. That single moment is a rebellion greater than any external revolution, because it is a revolution at the level of being. This is the life the unconscious never wanted you to know was possible. A life where the past is not erased, but it is no longer the author of your future. A life where every choice is an act of creation, not repetition. A life where you meet the world not as a collection of conditioned reflexes, but as the raw, unfiltered awareness that you truly are. And when you live from this place, something strange happens. You no longer need to force change. You are change. You no longer need to chase freedom. You are freedom. The ultimate truth about your unconscious mind is that it was never your enemy. It was a misguided protector, guarding a smaller version of you because it did not know the vastness of who you could become. Now you know. So the final question is not, can you break free? You already have. The question is, what will you do with a life that is finally your own? And as you step forward into that question, the fortress behind you fades into the distance, and the horizon ahead is limitless.